Hello there, everybody. Welcome along to EFL Debates. This is the League One podcast and the last one of the season. Thanks so much for everyone who's been able to join us over the course of the campaign. I haven't quite had the time with other commitments to do so much of it over the last month or so. So thanks for sticking with us. But look forward to rounding off the League One season and, of course, looking forward to that massive game in the League One Player Fan. We've got a couple of guests representing both London clubs, Charlton Athletic and Leyton Orient, of course. Jake, before we bring in the guests, I'm just wondering what I guess is the pressure more on Charlton Athletic going into the final, and how do how do you see it going?
Yeah, it sort of feels like it, doesn't it? Because Leyton Orient was sort of in a race to finish in that sixth spot, whereas Charlton have really had the playoffs pretty much wrapped up the most, certainly of 2025. I think, I do agree. I think the pressure will be on Charlton to perform. A lot of people will have them down as favourites. They finished obviously places above Leyton Orient in the league table this season. They probably on paper have. I know if you've got Parksy waiting in the green room, I don't know if that's who you've got, but he'll be here. But if he hears me say this, probably got a better squad than Leyton Orient. Probably haven't committed financially to players for the championship, perhaps more than Leyton Orient have. So I think there's more pressure on Charlton to get promoted. I mean, they sold out within I think it took them about 26 seconds to sell out the 36,000 seats. So fair play to them. The fans will be expectant.
Were they all sort of queued up like at the time that the tickets went on sale, just queued up to try and rush and book?
I have a friend who's a Charlton fan, Finchy, and he's still moaning about not having his ticket yet. I mean, you're probably going to go, well, here he is. No.
Well, here he is.
Superb timing.
Yeah, well, little does Finchy know, I bought my playoff final tickets most of them yesterday, and have had all of them this morning.
I literally got mine 10 minutes ago.
Oh, brilliant.
That makes me happy, because all I've seen him tweet about is, I've not got these bloody tickets yet.
It's Saturday. It's just so long, isn't it? When you buy them on Saturday, you get into Thursday, and I go away tomorrow, and I come back for the playoff final.
Right.
So I wouldn't have access to anything, so it was a bit touchy.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad you got that. That must be a real relief. It's a relief when tickets come, isn't it? Because it's like, right, I'm going, kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So where was I? So Dan, I mean, it's been you've been outside my team, Birmingham. You've been so dominant since around. Whereas that 5-0 win over Northampton, and since then, your points return has been absolutely outstanding. It's, I guess you that must put you in a confident frame of mind after that semi-final victory over Wycombe.
Yeah, and I think I said it to you before, and I think I said it to Jake as well when we talked. The fact that we keep so many clean sheets as well. It's just so helpful. I think Orient are a team that are going to be dangerous, and I think we'll create chances. But we've just had a knack this season. I think it's like 23 clean sheets. For last year, we had 5. So I think that gives you that little bit of confidence that whatever you do going forward can be matched by your defence. And I think we saw in both legs against Wycombe that our strike force didn't do much, but our defence was more than capable to carry us through. So hopefully more of the same on Sunday.
Jake, is there any concern from your point of view? I mean, Dan mentioned that defensive solidity that Charlton have shown for much of the season, but that performance those performances against Wycombe, you're right, it was an opportunistic poacher finish from Matty Godden, who's been in brilliant form second half of the season. But from your point of view, Jake, is there a concern that Charlton didn't really create much in either of those legs?
I think so, but then I think you caveat it with the playoff games pretty much are cagey, apart from Orient and Stockport, who are 2 teams that just absolutely went for it. I don't know. I've sort of been worried. I mean, I've spoken to Finch a little bit. Also, said at the start of the season when we did right at the start, we did worry about Charlton's creativity, didn't we? And they signed Alex Gilbert, and everyone seemed to think, oh, here's the man who's going to step in and help and change the dynamic of the midfield, which is very industrious and very, it provides that the depth, and it builds the team through the thirds, but it never had that creative spark. And for some reason, Gilbert, I mean, Vince will be able to tell us why he's not been able to get into the team, but he looks on paper the number 10 that they were crying out for when we were talking on deadline day. It feels like if Charlton are going to create a lot, it's going to come in the wide positions through like some Small or other players at the Tyrese Campbell or someone like that. I think it helps that Wembley will be a bigger pitch. I think the wide players will be able to. I mean, certainly from when I watched when we drew 2-2 at the Valley. The lad on the right hand side was it Kane Ramsey,
Small,
Thierry Small, absolutely unbelievable. I think him and Tyrese Campbell can really get in the wide areas and cause some issues. So yes, it's a concern, but I would say that playoff games pretty much are pretty tight anyway. And Wycombe are a team that are they don't give a lot away either. So it was always going to be 2 games of minimal chances, and if one team was able to take one, you were likely going to win it. And fortunately for Charlton, they've got Matty Godden, who's pretty ice cold when it comes to being in front of goal. And I mean, it was but I'm not too concerned, because I also think, Gab, that when you look at it at the other end, Leyton Orient they're not exactly watertight. They give away quite a couple of chances, and I ultimately think that will come to their detriment, because whereas before maybe teams weren't punishing them, whereas when you've got Matty Godden getting the chances at Wembley, I think he's going to take maybe one or 2 of those.
Both our games against Orient, sorry Gab, both our games against Orient were pretty similar to the 2 playoff games with Wycombe, to be fair. Just 2 like quite evenly matched sides, and it was the second game, the game we played I think in February, we scored 2 goals in the 90 plus minutes from corners, which I think pretty much summed up that game. It was so end to end, and it was just a case of 2 fluky moments where Josh Keeley had a bit of a nightmare, and we nicked to win.
Nathan Jones, then, Dan. I'm on the one hand, he's very good at his passion can be a real strength in terms of motivating players and getting them to really buy in. I'm sure that's been a factor behind that remarkable run of form that we've talked about, that only really Birmingham have bettered since around Christmas time. At the same time, there's part of me that wonders whether the fact that he does the dramatics so much, it can make him a pantomime villain. It can sometimes serve as a distraction and possibly detract sometimes from that calm, cool state of mind that you might need on the big stage as well.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys, isn't he, that when it goes well for you, you love him. And if it turns, you quite quickly can fall out of love with him. Same with if he's your manager at your club, you love him. If you're against him, you don't. But yeah, no, I think, listen, Nathan Jones has been a breath of fresh air to this football club. We've had a lot of, what's the right way of saying it? Yes men, I guess, coming in recently. I mean, Michael Appleton was very much a stoned face yes man, and never really connection.
You're not going to get him doing that kind of antics on the sideline.
No. You're not going to get him to smile, I don't think, especially not with us anyway. So yeah, it's nice. It can look a bit too much, and who knows if it's a bit of an act. But I don't think it's been a distraction. I think it's actually helped us, just because
I don't think it's an act, actually. I think the accusation is that it's an act, and we'll talk to Parksy in a moment from Leyton Orient, and he'll certainly tell us that it's an act. I don't think it is. I think he just is that sort of just caught up in he's just on an emotional roller coaster, and I think he just rides it, really.
I think it's like 80-20, right? I think 80 emotion, and then he does put on that little bit on top.
Oh, he looked at the camera.
The majority of it is him naturally. Yeah. I mean, most of it is him naturally. I do think he puts a little bit on it. He is a showman, bless him.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah. I definitely think he noticed the camera, Gab, right at the end,
it was right in his face,
before the full-time whistle, and the camera was on him on the touchline.
Yeah,
he knew, and that's why he got. I mean, look, I'm all for it. I like a character.
Yeah.
We've had the likes of Cowley, who's the exact same, who's great at it. I mean, I can understand why, as a Charlton fan, Finchy absolutely loves him. Whereas when you come up against it, you think, oh, it's a bit wet. It's a bit, not for me. But such is life.
The saving grace for him is, when you see him as often as we do at the Valley, that doesn't surprise us because he is so emotive on the sideline. Like he does join in with every aerial battle, and he will sprint down the touchline.
Yeah.
And I think there was a goal earlier on in the season. I want to say it was Tyrese Campbell against. We beat someone 4-0 at the Valley. I can't remember. Was it Huddersfield? It might have been Huddersfield. And I think like Nathan Jones went shooting down the touchline. It was just like on paper, it's just like a 4-0 game in the middle of the season. Do you know? And obviously, it was big at the time because I think that was the game that took us kind of into the top 6 at the time.
Yeah.
But it was so that doesn't surprise me to see him acting it. I just think it was a little bit. I saw the video when I got home and was like, "Oh, he's giving it large there, isn't he?"
Yeah.
Oh gosh! I mean, to be fair, it was the way he did it before the final whistle had gone as well.
So he's clarified that. He said that he spoke to the fourth official, who told him it's over. Like once the ball gets kicked, it's done. So that was his explanation to why he started at that point. But
okay.
I wonder how much the camera being in the way just egged him on a little bit more.
Bless him. So where was I? Lloyd Jones has had a fantastic season for Charlton Athletic. Would he be your player of the year, Finchy?
So mine was Kane Ramsey, but
okay.
Yeah, I mean absolutely either of them. Either of them won it. Lloyd Jones won our fans player of the year.
Mm-hmm.
I personally voted for Kane Ramsey, but they've just both been so good. And Lloyd Jones, like I saw the stat after the Wickham game that I think Sky Bet tweeted out about his clearances, and he was like 30 clearances. He's amazing. Like he's willing to battle is fantastic, and that's a defender we've missed for a long time at Charlton. I don't think we've had that since Jason Pearce retired.
Yeah.
So to have that kind of, you need a backbone, especially centre half, right? And I think he's been that difference maker.
Yeah, I think if I think of the Charlton Athletic sides that have been successful at this level in recent years. I mean, unfortunately, you haven't had teams that have been successful in the division above very recently, have you? But if I think of the really good League One sides with Charlton Athletic, I think you've had a really strong culture and really big characters, I guess, and so yeah, look, having Lloyd Jones feels like the new generation of that, if you like, along with the likes of Greg Doherty and Luke Berry and Connor Coventry and that crew.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing you always say, and it becomes a bit of a niche comment, but you do need a spine, don't you, in League One? I think in any kind of league, but I think when you look at the two teams that we've had that have gone up before now, it was the year it was like Michael Morrison and Matt Taylor with Danny Hollands and Dale Stevens, and then the year when we won the playoffs against Sunderland, it was Pearce and Bauer with Cullen and Darren Pratley. Obviously, he's at Orient now. And then now it's become Jones, Ramsey, Gillespie with Coventry, as you said, I love that man. He's just so good.
He mops everything up, doesn't he? He looks after the ball.
Well, me and Jake had a conversation before the Lincoln Charlton game, and we spoke about Connor Coventry quite a bit, didn't we? So,
well, he had a very brief loan spell at Lincoln, and I didn't think he was very up to much, but I think he went to MK Dons afterwards, didn't he? And then completely, I think can't remember the manager at MK Dons, whether it was Russ Martin or whoever it was.
It was the end of Liam Manning.
Completely just changed his trajectory, and he went. And then I think he got involved in the West Ham first team, didn't he? And then he got the big move to Charlton. But he's definitely come on.
He's moved to Charlton from West Ham.
Yeah, massive. Such an upgrade.
Across the road, it's fine.
Well,
you'll trip across the river.
Ironically, I did see West Ham Stadium on the way home from the Valley, so it was a sightseeing tour. I agree. What you're talking about there is. Hold on. Oh right. Well, what you're talking about? What you're talking about there is that you've got Charlton have got players that are proved in League One, like Lloyd Jones was at Cambridge and Northampton before. He wasn't particularly somebody who'd be, you often see so many big clubs at this league go and Birmingham, go and pluck players out of the Championship, or Sunderland or Sheffield Wednesday, whatever it was, pluck players from the leagues above and say, right, come and play in League One. And they can't quite adjust to it because it's never what they've done before. As Lloyd, you look at Lloyd Jones,
we had real difficulty with that this season.
Right, Gab, let's not make it all about you. Let's not make it all about you, Gab. But, okay, Sunderland then, for example, they went and got a load of players that were playing the Championship or playing the Premier League, whatever, and hadn't quite played in League One, whereas Charlton, with Lloyd Jones, when you have people like Lloyd Jones, you need enough of them, like Greg Doherty as well, he's got promoted out at this level. You spoke about Coventry, he's done it as well. Berry's got out of this league before. You need to sign players that know what you're doing in the league that you want to get out of, and that's why this time I think Charlton have done a lot better. They've got players that know this league, and they're out. So yeah, I don't think it's a coincidence. And Lloyd Jones, I think when you put him around better players, we always sort of said when he was at Cambridge and Northampton that he looked a decent centre half and maybe could make a step up to the Championship. He's just needed that next level in League One to get himself there. And fair play to him, he's been pretty decent.
Yeah, I think that's the key, and it's kind of all over our squad. You know, we've got a nice blend of youngsters that have come through the club at the minute in and around the team, but even down to like Will Mannion. You know, we got him from Cambridge in the summer, struggling Cambridge side, brought him in, and he's been fantastic.
Right.
Kane Ramsey's been around League Two, League One for a while. Gillespie with Plymouth got out the league, as you said. So there's a trend. I think Nathan Jones has been very clever with his business, and then done wonders with some of the young. Tyrese Campbell's a completely different player to what he was this time last year.
I mean, I really agree with you that he's done great work with his business. But what's really funny is that if you'd have shown people the stats of up to the last game before Christmas and then beyond, you would assume that you'd had like this amazing January window that completely changed it. But you wouldn't actually say that it was the January window that swung it. I think from my point of view, Dan, it was a bit more formational flexibility, going from
Absolutely.
a flat 3-5-2 to, I think it's a 4-2-3-1 shape that can kind of convert into a 3-4-1-2. So it's having that sort of slight flexibility that has just opened things up for you, I guess.
Yeah, I think it's the freedom that he's given Tyrese Campbell. As you said, it was more of a 3-5-2. Now he plays this weird 3-4-1-2. I guess is kind of the base formation. Yeah, with Tyrese Campbell having the freedom to kind of drift. And we've seen in a lot of games that when he gets up against the right centre half, they just don't want to deal with him.
Yeah,
they'd rather pass him to the right back. Josh Edwards,
but it's his vertical movement as well, isn't it, Dan? Because it's not just the fact that he runs directly at opponents, but it's like he runs into those spaces. So as opposed to being a marked man where you're front and centre and against the last line, if it's a deep block, he can't really do much. Whereas if he's starting wide, it's harder for opponents to kind of keep their tabs on him, and then he can come alive sort of later on in the moves.
Yeah, I feel the fit with Tyrese, obviously he's still learning the position, right? I think Wickham had his number over the two legs, and they knew how to deal with him. But when he gets a matchup that he's favourable for this season, every time he's had one, he's performed. And I just wonder with Orient, against Orient in the second game, he was busy and had a couple of really good chances. So we'll see if he can match up again and get some work on their back four.
Absolutely. Jake, anyone else that we haven't mentioned that you've been really impressed with from a Charlton perspective? We've got Thierry Small, who I really like the look of.
Yeah, well, that was really the guy. I thought he was particularly good. I'd like to give a mention. You know, Dan's already mentioned him about Will Mannion because he was someone that was maybe in and out of the team at Cambridge sort of over the last couple of years, with sort of playing second fiddle a little bit to Jack Stevens, and he's come in and really made that goalkeeper position his own. I think when Charlton fans probably saw that they were signing Will Mannion, they've gone, keeper from Cambridge, like seriously,
we thought he was going to be a backup.
Yeah,
Jones himself said that we were going to sign two keepers. Mannion was going to be the number 2, and we were going to sign a number 1. And then I think Mannion just started.
Yeah, and I think having a solid goalkeeper and a nailed down goalkeeper, when you chop and change, it affects your defenders. And the reason why Charlton have been able to been so good defensively this year is because they've had that solidity, the consistency of having Mannion behind them. And trust me, as a goalkeeper, you want to be playing in front of the same back three all the time. And I think that's massively helped them. Other players that I've liked, Doherty, I think Gilbert's been okay when he's come on. I seem to remember he had a really crazy assist to got minutes ratio or something like that. But one man that we really need to talk about as well. I mean, me and Finch have had chats about him before, Chuks Aneke, in terms of what he does when he comes off the bench, how he's been able to manage it. I mean, I seem to remember Javier Hernandez in the Premier League was an absolute gem at it, coming on off the bench and scoring and impacting games for Man United. And Chuks Aneke is literally the Javier Hernandez of the lower leagues. He comes on always.
He's a bit more physical than Javier Hernandez.
Agreed. He's a bit more butch. But he comes on, and without fail, whether that's his unpredictability, whether that's his pace, whether that's his power, whether it's because he's coming into games where he's not scared to have a go. I can always seem to think he scores against us as well. So yeah, it's I think he's played a big role. And when they change it, having a player that you know is going to come off the bench and impact the game at least, then I think Chuks Aneke does deserve a huge amount of credit.
I agree. I think he's someone that can be a bit frustrating as a fan because, bless him, his movement's on its way out. Bless him. He's had a lot of injuries, but as soon as he comes on the field, you see the other team, they're fascinated with him. There's always two on him. I think even the goal on, the Wickham against Wickham, the goal comes, but there's two centre-halves on him, which means that when the ball goes long towards that box from Gillespie, Jones is one-on-one at the back, and Godden's got the other defender the other side, and then there's two on Chuks at the edge of the box, which then frees up Godden. Just has to beat his man, which he does, and then you score because you've got that extra body on Chuks, who's actually not that close to the goal, but because they're so wary of him, it makes a huge difference.
Well, he came on in our game, Vincey, didn't he? And that's when you scored the second goal, I seem to remember, because we were, Paulie O'Connell, I think, was too interested in trying to have a wrestling fight with him, which doesn't surprise me whatsoever, than defend. And ultimately, you got the equaliser, and then it felt like a nightmare trying to get out there of a point. So,
the general joke with Charlton fans is with Chuks is he's either going to come on and get sent off, or there's going to be a goal. That's he does one or the other. Like, he's either involved in scoring or he's off the pitch.
Yeah, it's like deal or no deal, isn't it? Do you want to take the risk? In terms of the 11 that Charlton play, Finchy, are there any bones of contention that you would see?
No, I think our 11 will be wrapped up, sewed up, and dealt with way before today. I mean, the only thing you can maybe question if Luke Berry's fit, does he start over Gilbert? But there's been no. Jones plays his very close to his chest, so we don't know. I think
I suppose the question would be with a midfield trio of I know one of them's a 10, but you play Connor Coventry, Greg Doherty, and Luke Berry. Is there quite enough creativity? Is there that creative spark in the team, whereas that perhaps Gilbert might be able to offer?
I think Jake nailed it earlier on. We use width for our creativity.
Yeah.
Thierry Small, Josh Edwards, Ramsey on that kind of overlap on the right side, and then Tyrese Campbell going to the wing. That's been the big difference the second half of the season. So it doesn't worry me as much if the 10 isn't as creative. I think Luke Berry's more than Gilbert. I think the difference is Berry's everywhere. He's just everywhere on the pitch.
He's a presser, isn't he, Berry?
Yeah. Where Gilbert's more kind of on the ball, find your passes, which I think he did quite well in the first half against Wickham last Thursday. Berry just plays with that natural press, as you said, that I think then allows us to win the ball back and the width to become a problem.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. What have you made of Macaulay Gillespie's form this season? Because he's another one. I mean, he could be set for another promotion from League One. It's never felt like he's been considered a top individual player at this level, and yet he always seems to be playing a part of successful teams. So he seems to be a useful cog in Plymouth Argyle and Charlton Machines.
Yeah, I think that, again, another one since Christmas, just a completely different player. I think at the beginning of the season, he looked a little bit rusty. I'm not sure whether that's because he come in last January and we were really bad. So I don't know if he just joined in when we were playing bad and then just kind of dropped off. But yeah, I mean, since January, he's been unreal on that left side. I think playing in a 3 really suits him. Yeah. He can come out and he's not, I wouldn't say he's mistake prone, but there's normally one in there where maybe just a lack of concentration. And I think it helps him being in a 3. That you can almost have a cover for him, and that hides some of his downfalls a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, again, our centre halves have been brilliant. There's a reason Alex Mitchell can't get in the starting 11 at the minute.
Yeah, that's really surprised me. I mean, Jake,
you nasty man, Fincher, you rubbing it in. Sorry, Gab.
Yeah, that might have been done on purpose. I can't confirm.
Yeah, I mean,
it's
80-20. Well, look, Alex Mitchell was part of a great back line last season, and I thought when he got his move to Charlton, I mean, obviously it was convenience. That's why he chose Charlton, because it's round the corner and he didn't have to move house. And I mean, look, he's a great centre half. If he can't get in Charlton's team and they get promoted, look, maybe he ends up back at Lincoln. We'll have to wait and see. Because I'm sure there's a seat there for him. But he's a great defender to have as a backup. I mean, if you've got,
well, he was at Leighton Orient, so if Charlton don't get promoted, he'll just go back to Leighton Orient.
Well, he
They've
probably
got enough of our ex-players already.
he likes living around the corner, so maybe he will. Maybe may end up back at Millwall. But yeah, no, it's I am surprised because when he got his move, I genuinely did think the way he ended last season. I mean, I was very well. It was a great move for him personally. So I am surprised that he's not had more because he was really good for us last year. Really, really good, as in nearly as good as O'Connor.
Yeah. I remember us playing you guys at the Valley last year, and everything that went in the box, he cleared absolutely everything. He's
a madman. He's an absolute, but he's a good asset to have, isn't he? So if you get promoted, he's not a bad back. I think he could maybe have a go at Championship level. He's young enough, isn't he? He's not like he's 30 odd. He's still 24, 25. So
the knock on him, isn't it, is that he's not the best natural footballer.
Yeah,
but I think he's been unlucky where I think he'll probably fit better in the middle of the three. But for us, that's Lloyd Jones. So.
Yeah.
I think he'll be better as well if you're maybe in a championship and playing against teams that are going to put it on you a bit more. So when if you're 1-0 up away at home, say somewhere like a Leicester or an Ipswich or wherever, if they get promoted, and you need someone to come and head the ball away for 15 minutes to make sure that you win a game. Alex Mitchell's your guy. He'd put his head on a brick. He's just that sort of defender.
I'd be amazed if we're 1-0 up on Sunday or 2-1 or whatever. 5 minutes left. I'd be amazed if he's not on the pitch.
One thing I'm curious about though is when Charlton went to Leighton Orient back in February, you probably didn't really deserve anything from that game over the course of the 90 minutes. 1-0 down going into injury time, scored 2 late goals, and then, as we mentioned with Nathan Jones, ran into the away fans and did this sort of dramatic celebration. And he's made himself the pantomime villain for Leighton Orient fans. So I do wonder if there is going to be, I don't know whether it's as much from the players and internally as maybe from the fans, but is there going to be that defiance from the O's side to sort of have the last laugh and get one over Nathan Jones? I think that could be an extra motivating factor.
Yeah, more than likely. And I think in general, there's a lot of people putting Leighton Orient down for this game. And I don't know why. I think they've got more than enough ability to put, as you said, like the game at theirs, they should have had blown us out of sight really in the first kind of half hour. So I think there is a general build that they are severe underdogs, and I'm sure they'll use that to their advantage.
What do you think then, Jake? What if you had to make a prediction for the game? What would you say?
It's difficult. I think that if the game becomes basketball-like, I think Orient will win because I think Orient are better at going end to end, and I think they've shown it all season. The goals they score, they concede a couple, but they can often outscore teams. Whereas I think if we have maybe a cagey for 10 minutes or so, I can see Charlton maybe nicking it by a goal. And playoff finals, I'm yet to see a playoff final where it literally is like a basketball game, because Orient's two semi-finals. You often see semi-finals that are end to end and full of drama. You don't often get that in finals. A very fine margin, and I think me and Ben have said this all season. It's fine margin football. Nathan Jones and Charlton seem to be better at fine margin football than Leighton Orient do. So I imagine. I mean, if you ask me for a prediction, this is tough. I'm gonna go 2-1 to Charlton, just ever so slightly, because making it end to end at Wembley with the pressure that's on, I think is incredibly difficult. So, but Orient could do it. I'm not saying that Orient can't do it, because they can beat Charlton. They've beaten some good teams this year. So I think if Orient can have it their way, then I can see an O's win. But I think playoff finals historically have been pretty tight and pretty cagey. So I'm gonna just back Charlton.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be goals in this game. I would probably go for a 3-2 Charlton. What are you thinking, Finchy?
I don't want 3-2. No, I think 2-1 as well. I think the way I see it is a bit like the Wickham game. The longer it goes on level, I think the more chance we get of winning it. I think if it's, as Jake said, I think if it's a bit end to end and really open, I think Orient will find a way. I think if it's cagey and nibbly, the longer we're level, that's when Matty Godden seems to pop into his own. So that's the way we play. It's how we've been successful this season. So we'll continue it, and I'd say 2-1 as well.
Absolutely. Well, Finchy, thanks so much for joining us, and look forward to you speaking to you again next season, hopefully with Charlton Athletic in the Championship.
Thank you. Have a good one, lads.
Cheers, Finchy. See you on the weekend.
Cheers, mate.
Jake, before we're joined by Parksy, hopefully in a moment, I just wanted to kind of reflect on the League One season and what we, as a whole, and what we've seen so far. Because obviously Birmingham ran away with the league, but Wrexham, of course, continued their brilliant progress, and there's also been some fantastic underdog stories as well.
Yeah, it genuinely is like the best league out of the four, Gab, that we've got, because I mean, apart from Birmingham walking away with the league, you couldn't predict. No one predicted Wrexham to come up and go straight through the league. No one had.
Yeah, I had them in the bottom half.
No one would have expected maybe Stockport to finish in the playoffs, or Leyton Orient, a team that that sort of had a season last year where they nearly got it, but they fell off the last maybe 7 or 8 games. No one expected them to rise through, especially after the start they had, apart from one person that seemed to put a tweet out there and said, "Oh, actually, Leyton Orient could finish in the playoffs."
I did sound exactly like that, Jake.
Yeah, I know you do. Yeah, it is. The one thing that about the league is I think a lot of people could have predicted the bottom 4 this year. I think that's, I think certainly everyone would have got, I don't know about you, Gab, but I got 3 of the bottom 4. I had Cambridge, Crawley and Shrewsbury all to go down. I had Mansfield to go down. They weren't a million miles away given their second on that. Well, that would have been a real shame, wouldn't it, if Mansfield had gone down? No, definitely not. But I think that was the easier part to predict. And I think next year, I think you're sort of looking at the same sort of couple of teams that have sort of maybe circled the drain pipe a little bit this season. So I'm maybe thinking about maybe Mansfield, or worried about a Burton, depending on sales. You're worried about an Exeter maybe, or a Northampton, or somebody like that who might slip down. But yeah, it's been a really good season, top to toe. I think the quality in the league. People said that the League One is at its best this year. I think that League One has been just tighter. The competitive, there's not as much between the teams. I don't think the quality's maybe been up there.
Yeah,
compared to recent. I just think maybe the quality's been there, the ceiling's there, but maybe the floor's there, and there's not a lot between a lot of the teams. So I think it's made it more competitive, which is why it's made it so good. Yeah,
I think I would probably lean towards Wrexham. The fact that Wrexham got 92 points this isn't just me saying it, because I'm delighted to see Wrexham have all the success they're having, and I think it's long overdue for that football club. But even if you speak to Matt Jones from the Racecourse Ramble, I don't think he would say they've played brilliantly all season. Or for much of the season, and they've had sort of very specific question marks, and yet they've managed to accumulate 92 points. And there I would just question, and I think it's partly because the likes of Bolton and Huddersfield and Rotherham and just haven't really been able to live up to their billing. So I've actually come away from the League One season, even with the brilliant stories of Leyton Orient getting into the playoffs, and Reading, with their financial issues fighting through, Birmingham, of course. Still a little bit, sort of wanted a little bit more from this League One season myself.
Yeah, it's a lot of teams have underperformed, haven't they? Which has allowed the likes of Stockport and Wrexham and Orient in. I think Blackpool have underperformed this season based on having Steve Bruce and the players that they've got. Peterborough as well. They're generally always at the top end of the league.
Yeah. They've had a transition season, haven't they? Because they lost 4 star players. You're always gonna.
They have, but I would also say that with Peterborough, you just trust them to get it right. So you sort of assume that they'd be back up there. Huddersfield really disappointing, even that they threw money at it in January. Rotherham under Evans, I thought were going to be more effective than what they have been. So a lot of teams have had a subpar year, which then makes League One next year. I mean, these clubs can't have 2 bad years in a row, can they? Like, they can't have. You wouldn't have thought like a Rotherham could be bottom half again, or you wouldn't have thought Huddersfield, with the money and resources that they have available to them, you wouldn't think they'd be down there. Whereas, it's really interesting to see what League One's going to look like next year. I think you're going to have a lot stronger teams at the top. I think like a couple of years ago we had a divide, didn't we, between the top sides and then the bottom half. I think we could see that again next year. I think we're going to have a lot of really strong teams next season.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see how the summer shapes things. But for the last remaining game of the season, we've heard the Charlton Athletic side of the story. Now we're joined by Leyton Orient fan Adam Parks from the Lowdown podcast on Leyton Orient. Adam, good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. What's the bigger motivation for Leyton Orient, getting into the Championship or getting one over Nathan Jones?
I think you're probably... you're talking about my motivation. Right, I just want to pick you up on 2 points. Gab, I've got to issue an apology to you, because I wouldn't say mocked, that's probably a strong word, but I kind of ridiculed you a little bit about saying that Orient could get in the playoffs, and I said 16th was a good season. So thank you very much for your foresight. That kind of makes up for your Lawrence Figueroa.
I'm not in credit. I've just paid off the debt.
You just kind of balanced the scales.
Exactly. Yeah.
The other thing you just said about the league season being a disappointment. Would we want League One really to be like the Premier League? I found it. I gave my assistant manager the weekend off this weekend because I thought that we had no chance with 8 games to go. And I've had to get someone to come to my pub on Sunday so I can get to Wembley. But I don't think it was predictable. I think Birmingham was. I think that was done and dusted. But I think a lot of people had Rotherham second or Huddersfield second, didn't it?
That's what I'm saying. A lot of them have been very disappointing.
Disappointing, yeah. But I'd rather watch a season like that where teams can blow the teams away, because everyone had their blips, didn't they? And Charlton had a really good run at the end of the season, or from when they beat us 2-1, and we had that run in the middle of the season that's got back in contention, and obviously the run at the end. So I disagree with that. But yes, Nathan Jones, I have had my say privately with you, and so I'll be a bit more tactful with what I say. Any manager that is everyone's got the right to celebrate, but if you're looking to see where the camera is mid-celebration, then you're ashamed, and don't blame it on God. Anyway, we won't bring in religion. Look, it's been an amazing time to be an Orient fan. There's a lot of things that have gone on that makes it that way. I have to shout out Jake, because he's been on the end of a WhatsApp for the last few months and having his words, which has been quite supportive. But apart from when we played Lincoln at home, but it's been a really weird season, because I genuinely thought we were going down in October.
Oh no, you're joking! Really?
I did.
Oh,
I
come on!
We were playing some really bad football. No, we were playing some really bad football.
No, you were.
And I still believe that Richie Wellens would have still been a manager next year if that had happened. I said this to Nigel Travis myself. I interviewed Nigel the other day. And I said that, and I was really down in the dumps about it, to be fair. We were playing very poorly, and
my memory of my calculations where you'd shaded the territory in something like 11 of the first 14 games. You'd had the odd no-show like at Shrewsbury or at Wickham, but in most games you were getting into good positions and maybe just a little bit shot shy or not quite clicking in the final third.
It all comes down to the goalkeeper, Gab. The goalkeeper at the beginning of the season probably cost us anything between 6 to 12 points.
Exactly. And then
it could have been a different conversation about who's gone up automatically, which it sounds bizarre in itself to have that conversation. But we are here to talk about a playoff final. We won't talk about who won the coach of the season, because frankly, I think that's a ridiculous result.
I think when you get to 100, I understand, and I think that there have been some brilliant stories in terms of fighting against the odds that are in some ways bigger achievements. But I also think when you get to 111 points, like the mentality, like how often do teams with enormous budgets not quite deliver, and to deliver that emphatically in record-breaking circumstances. I don't think anyone's delivered 111 points in a Football League season before. So
I don't think you're going to like this analogy here, Gab. But
okay.
Remember when you were a little bit younger and you may be playing Football Manager, and then you became a manager of another team, so you could buy all your rubbish players, and then you suddenly got 20 million in the bank, and you bought loads of players, and then you won the league and got 110 points in Football Manager. Did you ever do that?
I've played a bit of Football Manager. Yeah, I didn't tend to change teams much. I would tend to stay with the same team.
I was always the Orient manager, but I always went to Man City or Liverpool and got 50 million in the bank in Division 3 or Division 4, whatever. And then suddenly I had Lionel Messi playing for Leyton Orient in the Champions League. But anyway, I'm just saying, credit where credit's due. I think there's been some amazing stories in League One this season.
Yeah,
but this is about Leyton Orient and Charlton, so let's get on it. Come on, let's talk about it.
I guess the star player for Leyton Orient, there's been a few, but I would say Ethan Galbraith. Are we talking about one of the best midfielders in the division?
Do you know, I had a conversation at Stockport, which thankfully I was there for, and it wasn't heated, but I had a bit of a constructive debate with someone about who my player of the season would be.
Okay.
And I wouldn't say I was humbled, but I still stand by my decision, and I would say it still would be Omar Beckles. But Ethan Galbraith has been the most consistent player for the Orient over the last couple of years. I think the guy is on an upward curve that even if we do win on Sunday, and we won't talk about dreams and stuff, he's definitely going to end up playing in the Premier League. He's got pace, he's got skill, he's got vision. He can play in numerous positions, which nowadays is obviously with the change of systems, especially at the higher levels, is very key. His history at Man United as well, and obviously Newcastle were one of the teams that were coming in for him when we signed him. So honestly, the guy's on another level. So I think we can trigger his contract and get him for another year. But I think all we'll be doing is getting money at the end of the day. And let's hope he's in an Orient side in the Championship, because that's where he probably should be playing right now.
Interesting you mention Omar Beckles there. I mean, clearly from a point of view of influence, and maybe you put Darren Pratley in a similar category, just those leadership qualities and the maturity that he brings to complement some of those young talents has been extremely valuable from what you're saying.
Being open and honest, I've never been Omar Beckles' best fan. I haven't.
We had the conversation, didn't we, in the summer deep dive? Perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're talking about leadership and as a person, there's no doubt about that. I mean, like, excellent, great. And he had the odd game where he was, or string of games, and then he'd get injured or something would happen, and then his confidence would maybe go. I always thought we had a mistake in him. And up until the playoffs, I really hope he doesn't watch this, and I'll probably get some vitriol from some people. But in the playoffs, he's been okay, but he's had their moments. And I think you saw it at the end of the game at Stockport. His legs have gone, which is fair enough. There's a lot of players that legs have gone. And he totally miscued the long ball, which, let's be fair, they should have scored from. But during the season, I can't find a more consistent performer. I think Galbraith was consistent and at times had peaks and troughs. But I think when he left the team injured, that's what affected us in that 5-game run. And we didn't look as solid. So I think credit where credit's due. I'm always one to put my heart on my sleeve and say how I feel. But I'll also be one to recognise great form and great performances. And yeah, Omar Beckles for me is still my player of the season. But Ethan Galbraith is very, very close.
Jake, I mean, there's I think 5 great players that you could sort of reel off when it comes to Leyton Orient. You've got Omar Beckles there, who perhaps he would make his player of the season, which is a real testament to him. You've got Josh Keeley, who's kept one of the most clean sheets in League One this season. You've got Ethan Galbraith, who Richie Wellens thinks has been one of the best midfielders in League One. You've got Jamie Donnelly, who's been an absolute delight to watch, a beautiful left-footed technician as that sort of withdrawn forward, and Charlie Kelman, who's been the top goal scorer in League One. So in terms of the best 11, Leyton Orient really do have that star quality to compete with Charlton.
Are you going to bring up Jack Curry and Jordan Brown yet, or are we going to wait?
Curry, yeah, I'd put in that category for Jack.
They have that's been the difference for, I think, Orient this year, and they've been able to pay a couple of fees as well for Sonny Perkins. I think that opens up a whole different market when you're able to sign players for a fee rather than just bringing in Parks would have seen it before when you're non-league and you're bringing in frees and loans, and that's all you ever bringing in, to all of a sudden go into paying fees for. I think you paid for Abdullah and you paid for Sonny Perkins and Ollie O'Neill. It's a completely different ball game, and it allows you to open up a new market. Ollie O'Neill, who, by the way, I was really impressed when they signed him, given his history at Fulham and how highly thought of he was there. And he made a pretty big impact, didn't he, on the other night when he scored it within 2.5 minutes. So yeah, they've got a really good 11, Leyton Orient. Perhaps where you might question them is the depth a little bit. If they get injuries to a couple of key players, is there a significant drop off potentially? I'm not sure whether they're going to have someone that's going to come in and do the same job as Charlie Kelman, but I think that's universal. I don't think that's a Leyton Orient thing. I think if you have a goal scorer, you're not often going to have someone who could probably come in straight away and score at a similar rate to Charlie Kelman. But yeah, my worry for Leyton Orient is, Parksy, is that you've got a lot of loan players. That's my concern. And if you don't get promoted, I've been in your shoes before, playoff final, where you've got loanees that are far too good. I mean, one of ours has just scored a winning goal in a European final. Hopefully that's to come for Jamie Donnelly. Are you concerned that if you don't get promoted, Kelman will go back and probably won't return? Donnelly won't come back. Josh Keeley probably won't come back. You're probably going to lose Galbraith, like you said. Does that concern you at all, or can you sleep at night knowing that?
If Richie Wellens is our manager, no. I think Richie's had a lot of frustration with having to rebuild squads every year. It's a big thing for him. So I think there is a lot of there's a lot to do with momentum. So if Orient were to go to Wembley on Sunday, and let's be fair, I don't think it's unthinkable that the Orient win on Sunday. I think there's some Orient fans that believe it's unthinkable, and I believe there's a lot of Charlton fans that believe it's unthinkable. And I do think there's a lot. Me personally, I thought whoever won the Stockport Orient game are going to go up, because after seeing them two semi-finals with Wickham and Charlton, they were turgid, rubbish. And you could say that Nathan Jones is a tactician, etc. But I can see where the game's going to go on Sunday. If Orient don't score first, and they do, it will be a 1-0 game, which he then defends, puts 5 at the back, and it will just be a stalemate. But if Orient score first, then Charlton will have to come out. At which point, on a pitch like Wembley, they're going to leave space for people like Kelman and Nagy to get space. Right. So going back to the question about the loan signings, will they leave? I mean, Charlie Kelman is, if my sources are correct, and I won't say the number, has a reasonably low minimum release clause. But the flip side of that would be that there will be a lot of other clubs in the Championship or maybe the top end of the Championship who look at a goal scorer who scored 20 odd goals in League One and topped the charts ahead of people like Jay Stansfield and Kone, and go, well, we'll pay you 10. And that's the reality. We could have bought him for a couple of 100,000, I think, at the beginning of the season. But now he's probably going to go to the World Cup with America next year. So that's the swings and roundabouts of it. Could we get Donnelly again? No, I don't think so. Even if we went up, I think Donnelly would end up in the Spurs squad because he'll end up playing in the Champions League on the bench or in the cup competitions to fulfil that side of things. Could we get Keeley? I believe so. I think Keeley isn't quite ready. I think if you're going to, and you said some lovely things about Josh Keeley, and I will reiterate them as well, but I think if you're looking at the game against Charlton or a game against Wickham, I'm more worried about Josh Keeley in a game against Charlton than I am about Wickham, because he had those issues in the game we lost 2-1. Jack Curry is probably a player we could if we went up. And Ethan Galbraith, if we do extend his contract, he probably could stay. But then if we don't keep him and we extend his contract and we sell him for a certain wedge of money, then you reinvest sensibly. So I think what you're saying is correct. There hasn't been a consistent squad that Leyton Orient have had since probably 2018, when we put a whole squad of players together. When we nearly went out of business, and obviously Nigel Travis and Eagle Investments took over Leyton Orient.
Yeah,
and we only added a couple during the summer after, and we won the league. That's probably the closest we've gone to consistency, because ever since then we've had some turgid players, and I couldn't play football professionally, but sorry, they're turgid. I don't care what way you look at it. And we've had lots of loans. Sonny Perkins, you brought him up as a prime example. We paid money for him, from what I gather, and he's not been near the squad. Abdullahi comes in, scores a hat-trick, and then he's not in the starting 11 for 10-11 games. Makonde comes in, he's Chesterfield's best player, and he makes an instant impact, and then he's on the bench the rest of the season. I think the depth, the question right now, if you said to me there's depth in Orient squad, I'd say I'd worry if I was Charlton, because we've got game changers on the bench, which is something we've not had in the last couple of seasons. If you're talking about Orient getting promoted, then you're talking a totally different hypothetical question, which I'm not going to go into, because I don't believe in fate. And I think we've come full circle as a football club. And to be at Wembley, 11 years after what happened at Rotherham, being 2-0 up at half-time and seeing that, well, let's call him a fraud now, because, he's proven it again, hasn't he? He's gone somewhere chasing the money and he's fouled. Thank you, Steve Evans. You've given me a laugh this season. Seeing that clown run down the touchline with his pants falling down, I'll never erase that. The one thing I don't want from Sunday is seeing that clown Jones looking at a camera and celebrating. The Orient family have got through some of the toughest times football clubs have seen. And there are some football clubs have gone to the side, and we'll never see them again in their same capacity. But the Orient family, and I call them this, and I'm talking players, the board and the fans, have come through some hellish things. Yeah. I mean, anyone who's seen Lee Angol play up front will tell we'll be able to do that. But I do jest again. I've never played a professional football game.
Great player part. You stop playing.
Unbelievable. Players in the 1920s.
Great hamstring. But we've gone for some help. And I tell you, like the Richie Wellens has done amazing things with the Orient squad. But Richie Wellens has done some amazing things with the Orient faithful as well, because we're going to Wembley on Sunday. We're not expecting to win, but we know we've got a bloody good chance that we can. And we should have beaten Charlton in that game. We were winning 1-0 in the 92nd minute, and a couple of mistakes, and they put some lumps on. We could. I honestly think that Sunday is going to shock a lot of people. I can't see. It's not going to be a game where there's only one goal. It won't. Orient will score. But if Orient score early, we've seen it against Huddersfield, all right, at the end of the season, but we've seen it in other games throughout the season, like Exeter, we blew them away 6-2. If they get a head of steam against a team like Charlton that will be very flat at the back, and if they get in behind, if Donnelly gets space on that Wembley pitch, which we know is quite big, and if Kelman can get into the channels and actually come in from either, I tell you what, I really hope next week we could have a catch-up, and I'm being right about this, but I could see Orient being 2-0 up in 10-15 minutes, and then it's a different game, because Charlton are going to have to come out. If Charlton score first, then I worry. Put your lights on, Gab. Come on, make some movement. There we go. That's where I worry about Orient. I think we've chased a lot of games. We've lost one game in 11 games or whatever. 12 games. I think Charlton have lost one in 11. Very evenly matched teams in terms of form. I think what we've done in the last 10, 11 games has been far superior to Charlton. but Charlton have been grinding out results. So we're going to see a very strange game on Sunday. It's either going to be a 4-3 or a whatever. It could be a 4-1 to Orient, or it could be a 1-0 to Charlton. I don't think there's any way that the game will go. I know you're going to say I've gone through loads of different scorelines there, but I just feel like if Charlton win, it's going to be 1-0. I can't see it being any more than 1-0. If they get an early goal, they'll just shut up shop.
So you'll definitely score, but if Charlton win, it'll be 1-0.
Yeah, I know. But this is what I'm saying. The mentality is different. The mentality is different. We've got the top scorer in the division. We've got one of the most dangerous players in League One, even if he's unorthodox time, is in Dan Adji. You've got Ollie O'Neill play on the left, Randall Williams as well, who's going to probably be on the bench, I would say. But it would be harsh on him because he's played really well in the last group of games. Jordan Brown came in against Stockport away, and the fact that he was there really probably helped us win that game, even if it was on penalties. Jack Curry, if he's fit, one of the best left backs in League One.
Oh, so unlucky at Birmingham, by the way, to get sent off in the first.
Don't start me on that rant.
Oh,
how many sending offs does Birmingham have at St Andrews? 7, I believe, this season.
Is it 7, right?
Yeah, for the opponents. I'm just saying.
How many penalties they had, Parks?
I think that's 9. 9. Orient didn't get their first penalty until the second from last game of the season, I think. Maybe that's a little bit wrong, maybe 4, but I'm just saying. Anyway, look, that's what crowds do, Gab. I'm just messing with you. It's fine. Birmingham deserves
if we hadn't had those 7 penalties, we might have only had 104 points rather than 111. So
so you wouldn't be able to say about Chris Davis getting 111, then, would you? No, look, listen. I tell you what, I can't wait.
Actually, coming back to it, what would promotion mean to Leyton Orient in the context of your relationship with the football club?
I think you've led me on to something there, which I wasn't prepared for. So Huddersfield last game of the season was my mum's last game. And she saw a really good day. She had a really good day. And I've seen a lot of videos on YouTube of like podcasters and like football influencers, and some Orient fans have posted on YouTube. And like every now and again, you'll see a glimpse of my uncle, my mum and my dad celebrating the goals and stuff.
Yeah.
So to effectively lose her straight after that, totally unexpected, was horrible.
Gosh, that must be
it's the home game at Stockport was cathartic because I got to see all my family, but I also we had a little bit in the program, and a lot of people came to see my dad. And to make sure he was all right. And obviously I've got friends over there as well that we weren't making it public knowledge and stuff like that. And the messages of support since then have been amazing. But I also say away at Stockport, you've got to have an angel looking over you for some of the stuff that they missed. And being through and hitting the post in the last minute is something. But no. We're going to do it for. It's not just my mum that's passed away. There's a lot of Orient supporters and Orient family that have passed on this year, and it's just that mine's one of the most recent. But I've seen on Twitter there's a couple of people. Mr. Bond's one of them that have sadly gone. But it will mean a lot. But this is why I would have preferred playing someone like Wrexham in the final. You know. Because Charlton, they're not a bad club. We haven't got a rivalry with them, you know. If it had been Southend or Millwall or West Ham or Dagenham and Redbridge, one of those clubs, which sounds pathetic when you sometimes talk about rivalries, it would have been much, much nicer. But no, she'll be watching from somewhere above the arch. I'm sure she will, and it's going to be a great day. I tell you, there's going to be about 30,000 Orient fans. I think the ticketing, that's a different conversation. Let's not talk about that tonight. Jake's had the back end of that when I've been trying to sort him anyway. But, you know, there's going to be, I reckon, around 65, 70,000 people for a League One playoff final, which is insane. The last time Orient played there against Rotherham, I believe it was 35,000. It wasn't.
Yeah, because that was a real heartache. Because it was like you're 2-0 up in that game, having been right up in the automatic promotion race with Brentford that season, and then conceded to the Alex Ravel wonder goal and lost.
Agent Jones, Gab. It was Agent Jones that did that because both goals were his fault. I tell you what. One thing it does is humble you. Let's not forget about what happened straight after that. But one thing about football, it does humble you. At half time, I remember being 2-0 up, and I've been involved with the club quite a lot that season because I was working for Nando's, so we've done some stuff with them. So I made some really good contacts in the club. I found out where the players were going after the game for the party, and then we lost on penalties. And so that does humble you. And then obviously what happened with Bacchetti after, that humbles you. So I'm going to the game where I know the outcome could be that we lose. And at half time, if winning 2-0, I know the outcome could be we lose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think what's really significant, I'm sorry to interrupt because it's really important what you're saying there, but I think what's more important than the outcome of Sunday's game is Leyton Orient having a stable football club with people at the helm who really care about the club. That's got to be the starting point, and it should be a given in English football, but it isn't, and you know that as well as anyone. So I think everyone at that football club should be immensely proud, not just the progress that's been made, but the stability that they've brought to the football club, that it's given the supporters.
Well, again, you're talking about a different journey again. I mean, what Jake said was based on what we've got to at this point. We've now got a new majority shareholder that essentially laid the path for Paris FC to get into Ligue 1. So we've got a different ballpark to play in now, where we're looking at new stadiums and investment and.
Noise has been it. So because I was aware, I knew there was new investment. I didn't actually know about new owners. That was
so David Gandler is, I think, is around 78% ownership of the football club. So now he's the majority ownership. He's taken over. The first thing he did was very Bacchetti-like, and he said Nigel Travis is still the chairman.
Oh, brilliant!
Mark Devlin is still the CEO. Lovely. I have no interest in running the football club because I don't know what I'm talking about.
That is brilliant.
We'll invest. I'll do this. I'll do that. But from speaking to Nigel the other night at 1 o'clock in the morning when I interviewed him for the podcast, he seems very humble, very polite. He's bought into the ethic of what the Leyton Orient should be. But we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I think everyone's in for a treat. If anyone has seen the Stockport games, they're going to be good games of football. Everyone saw the Orient Man City game. They know they're going to be good games of football. The one thing that I think we have different to Charlton is I think we at 1-0 down, we're not going to stop. I think if we get on top of them, I think we'll beat them quite handsomely. And I think we have the manager to do that. I think, and just to go back to that, I don't think Richie Wellens was manager of the season, by the way. But that wasn't loaded towards Richie about Chris Davis, and it definitely wasn't Phil Parkinson. But Dave Challoner deserves them plaudits because I think he's not only is he a humble man, he is an exceptional operator of a football club. So Dave Challoner, shout out to you, mate. The fact that we beat you in the semi-final was I wasn't going to Stockport thinking it was going to be an easy task. So Dave Challoner for me was manager of the season.
Interesting. Right. Well, I think it's been an incredible journey for Leyton Orient, and I think a really exciting future, whatever happens on Sunday. Parksy, thanks so much for sharing that with us. Can you give us a prediction then?
I've just given you a big speech about being humble, haven't I? Screw being humble. I'll do what I did on the podcast. I believe that there are too many factors that factor into this. New ownership, the journey we've been on, the cycle that we've now completed to get back to Wembley 11 years after being there and the last chance we had to do this. We have the best manager in the bottom two divisions, I'm convinced of. I have a manager on the up. We have players that are going to create history for Leyton Orient. I think we are going to have a game on Sunday that people don't expect. We will be 2-0 up. They will get one back, and we will win 4-1.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, that's a big prediction.
And I haven't been drinking yet.
Brilliant stuff. Well, listen, Parks, it's been such a pleasure to have you on. Thanks so much for joining us. Likewise, Jake Tong, brilliant insight from the Here for the Lincoln podcast. Great insight on all things third tier as well. That's our last podcast for the season. You can get subscribed to EFL Debate on YouTube and on Spotify for the summer deep dives that are coming up over the course of June and July, from 9th of June onwards. And we'll see you again very soon.